If you've ever wondered whether joining a podcast network could help you grow your show, then listen to this episode before you sign on the dotted line. I have got Stephen Perlstein, the Senior Vice President of Business Development over at Libsyn, back in the studio with us to break down what most podcasters miss when it comes to network deals, including how to spot hidden red flags and the exact questions that you should be asking the network before partnering with them so you can make smart decisions that protect your creative and financial future. Welcome to Insider Secrets to a Top 100 podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Elmer. Let's make your business binge-worthy. Stephen, welcome back.
It's been so long since we chatted. I've just been thinking about our last talk for days and days and excited to finally close the loop on a few things I've been thinking about.
I love this. Well, you know what? You made me laugh too. I was emceeing the stage at Podcast Movement. And I went and cornered you. I saw you sitting there at a table, like typing on your laptop. I'm like, can I bother you for a second? I have got to get you on my podcast to talk about networks. But your sense of humor and everything that you bring, I absolutely love it. And I want to dig into contracts with you because I think this is kind of the nitty gritty where the rubber really meets the road of like, okay, you're entertaining a network. You're considering it for your podcast. What do I need to be thinking about? How do I know if this is a good deal for me? But before we get to that, what would you say makes a podcast ready or not ready to seriously consider joining a network? Obviously, in the episode before this, we laid out that networks are different. But speaking from what you do at Libsyn, what are you looking for in terms of a podcast that would be a good fit for your network? And how's that different from other networks that might be out there?
How do we know if you're ready for a podcast network? Okay, good question. It's key to know what you're looking for with a podcast network. So sometimes it's providing community, sometimes it's providing distribution support, some marketing support, some production, guests. I am pretty focused on the commercial and ad sales side of it. So when I say, are you ready to join a network? I'm mostly talking about, are you ready to join a network that's key value is providing ad sales to your podcast? Now, am I ready for it? Well, there are two types of ads, basically. There's host-read ads, which everybody knows and loves. Go to xwebsite.com/your podcast name and save 15% on this meal kit or whatever. That is what most networks and most podcasts who are monetizing make the majority of their money with. Anywhere from 90 to 70% of their revenue will come from those host-read ads when things are working. There's also programmatic advertising, and those are the pre-recorded ads, sometimes more nationalized campaigns like, hey, check out this credit card or this, cell phone plan. And those are pre-recorded by something else, inserted into your podcast at points where you usually decide or the network that you're working with decides. Am I ready to join a commercial ad sales network? Well, Libsyn, as an example, has a program that's available to everyone called our automatic ads program, where you can do programmatic ads, day one. You can sign up and start making money right away. But most people, when they're saying like, do I qualify, are thinking, do I qualify for host-read ads? There's a lot of common wisdom about it, anywhere from 20, 25, 50,000 downloads. I think those are all great, about right targets. The minor caveat that I would have in there is there are some networks that value specific genres and audiences and their associated audiences more and are more comfortable with lower than that number of 20, 25,000. Technology, business, finance, some things that are around like health and wellness and lifestyle, those can be a little bit more appealing for advertisers and they're willing to get in at a lower reach. But generally, I think 20, 25,000 is a good place to start. And, I'll just say one thing that we haven't totally covered, but I think it's really important to remember, if you're thinking about joining a network, it's a partnership. Every podcaster is thinking like, what is in this for me? But just like dating, if you go up to somebody and say like, hey, what do you have to offer me in a relationship? It's probably not that appealing. So a network is also looking for something that's appealing for them. So networks are getting value out of this. They're having a show that's sellable, that's of a size, that has an audience that is valuable to the advertisers that they work with. And so, yeah, that download threshold, 25,000, 20,000, it's not about, holding people away or keeping them at arm's length or whatever. It's not that. It's just that advertisers only buy shows at a certain size. The time it takes to transact and send orders and ad copy and reads and all that stuff. There's a cost associated with that. And so kind of the ad world has pretty confidently coalesced around 20 to maybe 50,000, somewhere in the middle there, 1,000 downloads per episode. That's kind of the rubric before you start getting host-read ad reads.
And I think this is a great threshold to know, because if you're listening right now and you're like, oh my gosh, 20,000 downloads an episode, like, like it's like staggering. You're like, holy cow, I'm getting 20 downloads an episode right now. I don't know how I'd ever get to 20K. But make it a goal that you aspire towards if that is how you want to monetize your podcast. Obviously, there are many ways you can monetize a podcast, and there are many benefits to joining a network. And maybe, on the commercial side, this is the path. But there are other, like you mentioned, marketing. And in fact, let me ask you that. Are there other networks out there that would help a podcast get to that level where that is their main focus, more so on the marketing side, to even be ready to meet a threshold like that?
So a couple quick ones I want to say is, like, if you're hearing 20,000 have 20, like, that's okay. And it's fun. It's fun to do podcasts. I love podcasters. I love creators. And part of the reason I got into helping on the network side, the business side, is I want to keep encouraging people to grow. So maybe I can't help sell your show, but that's why I'm here. I want to talk to you about how you can get there and be helpful and all of that. That's my hopefully some level of service I can provide. And also, if you're at that number, 20, 50, 100 downloads, whatever it is, you have to remember, I'm saying this is where it's valuable for a network to do the sales. You, as the podcaster host, or maybe a friend or partner who knows a little bit about that space, might have success and value out of transacting some ads in your niche in a specific, category, whatever. At a network side, because of the scale, because of the advertisers, because of the volume, they work a little bit different, and those thresholds are a little bit firmer. So to go back to your question, are there networks that can help me get to that big number? We don't have an audience faucet. If I had the audience faucet and I could just give you 20,000 listeners, I would do that all day. I would be wildly rich. I would be in the Bahamas right now. I don't know if I'd go to the Bahamas. I'd go to Italy. No, France. I'll go somewhere. I'll figure that out once I get the audience faucet. I'm not there yet. There are networks who do focus more on marketing and can do things like promo swaps, guest swaps, sometimes things that look like paid marketing, in-kind impressions. You'll hear all kinds of things. I think truthfully, those are marginal value adds. Those are only so effective, 1-2%. Sometimes there's a really strong alignment. They send out your ad to 100 people. 1 or 2 people are going to convert. And maybe if there's really, really a strong alignment, like 5 or 6. So they're marginal in what that network offers. You should understand, but also like temper your expectations. No network has the audience faucet. And if they did, they would turn it on. They would make as much money as they could out of it. It's not obvious that would just be handed out for free.
I think this is so helpful to know because, when it comes to networks, there is a lot of questions around it. What is a network and can it help me? And does my podcast qualify? And all these questions that it raises. And because there's no one size fits all, it can be confusing. But when you're understanding of the fact that, okay, if I were to go that route, and in order for this to be a successful partnership with a network, kind of 20K is the number I'm looking at, I'm not there yet, then it actually frees your brain up from having to even worry about it or focus on it. And it allows you to put that energy into something else. And I remember this in the early days of my own podcast. I have a niche podcast on podcasting. So first of all, you have to want to learn about podcasting to even find my podcast to begin with. And as a niche podcast, I'm not going to pull the kind of numbers that a commercially branded podcast can pull. It's just an apples to oranges comparison. So to me, when you have that information and when you kind of just have that confidence in knowing like, okay, my show is not that, and that's okay, then it opens up that creative energy and you're able to pursue other avenues of growth that are a fit for you. I think on the flip side of that though, and as a judge for the Webby Awards, I look at a ton of branded podcasts that are pulling in those numbers. And I mean, ad revenue, it is dependent on volume. Let's say there is a host who's got those numbers and they're like, okay, I think I have what it takes to join a network. I'm kind of curious in creating this partnership, but I'm a little nervous about negotiating. I don't really understand what kind of leverage I have. What should I be thinking about asking when I actually sit down and I'm reading this contract and it's Greek to me and I don't even know all these legal terms? Like maybe have an attorney look at it, of course, but like, what should they be looking for? And what are some of the things that they really need to know? Like, yes, this is going to be a fit for me and this is going to be something worth moving forward with.
Let me go back on marketing one more piece on this, because I think I came off maybe more negative than I intended to be. One thing I also just want to say about marketing and networks, a good network, a good partner, people who have a track record that you can Google and find out that they've done a few things, they'll sometimes see, and especially in smaller podcasts, what I'd call low hanging fruit for improvement. Again, I'm thinking very commercially, as we mentioned before. So a lot of the podcasts that I work with, candidly have pretty significant audiences already. And it's challenging for me to go like, okay, I can add 10% just by some tweaks, or, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands listeners just by adding some tweaks. Sometimes on small podcasts, I do see little things that I can do very quickly where I'm like, you're doing this all wrong. I can help you be more impactful, get discovered faster, fix just a little thing. A long time ago, I helped a podcast retitle their podcast in a very, very, very small way. And it like changed it from like we're talking about, a few hundred podcasts to a tens of thousands of podcasts. And that's dumb. It's small. It's rare. But every now and then, a person like me, a person with a track record and expertise, a network can go, here's something you can do that is meaningful and impactful that might actually turn on a little bit of an audience faucet. Okay, so that's me throwing away the negativity of my first answer and remembering that there is positive answers there too. And you should hopefully find a network that can come with a wealth of experience, tweak, offer some suggestions, and help you build. Okay, should I sign the contract? Should I, partner? What should I be looking out for? Well, remember, in the commercial side, networks are gaining value out of working with you. Usually, a network is going to ask for a split of your sales, some level of control over your content. And really, usually that'll just mean like ad content, some exclusivity, or affirmation that you will do ads how they best see fit, and yada, yada, yada. And then podcasters, like, how do I have leverage? What are we chatting about here? Well, networks are looking for an audience that they can monetize, a professional partner. And I can't emphasize this enough. I think a lot of times we focus on the monetization part of it, but a professional partner as a podcaster is super valuable. People who publish on time, who communicate clearly, who do what they say they're going to do. For some of you, I'm sure you're going like, this is obvious, and that's the easiest part. It's not. Uh, and then we're also looking for, some brand voice, specific audiences, specific niches. So a lot of times, maybe a negative version of this, or a counter example is like, people go like, I've got a podcast that's for anybody and everybody, and it's me and my dudes, and we just chat, and like we're just chatting. That's kind of a challenging sell. Whereas if you go, hey, my podcast is focused on early careers for people in tech, I go, perfect, clear. I know exactly what type of brands might make sense, what type of audience you have. Really, really clear for me. That's really valuable on the network side. So, show your wares. Be proud of what you've got. Your audience, information about them, and more specific, the better. Okay, we're also going to, this is a big question, Courtney, so I'm trying to untangle it all in one beautiful shot. You do a great job at asking questions, and more so, you've had great guests that I'm just trying to live up to their
You're
the
doing a
standards that they've set.
fantastic job. And also, let me jump in here, okay? Because we're going to get to that question, but I just want to really jump back to what you mentioned about, the marketing piece of it, because that was actually a question I had for you too, which is, tapping into your expertise, reverse engineering the process a little bit, and what can someone do to get to that point if that is their goal. So I want to circle back to that with you. I'm going to let you answer this other question first, but I want to hear your answers on both, because I think you do have so much wisdom to share, from both sides of the coin, being on the creator side and also experience in the business side of it. And I would love to just kind of lay out what that path can look like for people, even down to like specifics like name tweaks and what specifically people can be doing. But anyway, we'll get to that. Continue.
Okay. So should I work with a network? Well, I kind of think it's as simple as a few things. Yes, you should work with a network if you don't have brand connections or you don't want to sell your podcast. Some people are really comfortable selling on their own. Some people have some brand connections. If that's the case, it's not immediately obvious that you should be working with a network. Two, does the podcast network that you're talking with have control requirements for your podcast that you're comfortable with? So sometimes a podcast network will say, we want exclusive rights over the sales inventory of your podcast. We don't want you selling it to anybody else. We want you to place ads like this. We want you to work with X, Y, and Z brand. Some of those requirements, hopefully, that are very clear when you're talking about them. If they fit your needs, that's great. If they're requirements, if you're a person who doesn't like programmatic ads and the network says we're doing programmatic ads, it's not a good fit. And then finally, like if they are offering services that are more valuable or more effective than you doing it on your own. So if they're saying like, hey, we can help you with the production of your show, and all we need is, I don't know, 50% of your ad revenue. If you go, well, their production's better and, it's a lot of work for me and it costs me this much money and I think I'm going to make this much money, that trade-off, that might be really clear and easy. Or you might go, the production costs nothing. It's certainly not worth that much money. No way I'm doing that. Then maybe it's not a good fit. But again, like networks get hyped up. A lot of our biggest and favorite podcasts are on networks, but it's not a panacea. It doesn't fix everything. And there is a trade happening. There is a trade. You are both getting value if you do it right out of this relationship. So you just have to be aware of what you're giving up and what you're getting. And if you do it right, most networks, when they're operating at a high level, are adding value, creating value to the partnership. Years ago, I went to a podcaster and said, hey, you were going to work with one advertiser. I'm going to get you $220,000. And that was awesome. They make more than, with that one advertiser, more than 95% of US households, right? Just one advertiser. The wrong network. I had a podcaster come to me who had been with a podcast network for a year and said they made $0 over the course to a year. And that's a bummer. So you just want to make sure you understand what you're giving up and what you're getting.
Yeah, I think this is so clarifying and it's so elucidating. And this is why I wanted to bring you on, Stephen, because I feel like just having the knowledge, whether you meet the criteria to go join a network or not, at least now you have the knowledge to know if you're a fit and if you want to eventually get there. Maybe the answer is no, and that's also okay. And that's kind of the beautiful thing in podcasting is that, you get to kind of pick your path forward and what that looks like for you. And I really want to tag back to that answer that you gave so beautifully earlier about, kind of the marketing piece where you were talking about fixing someone's name for the podcast. And it was something as simple as that. And, we could record a whole nother episode on, I'm sure, on all the things that you see that, could be tweaked here and there in order to make a podcast more quote unquote sellable in the sense that it's marketable, that it's sellable, that there's immediate, inherent, evident value there. Are there any other tips that you would leave with us in terms of someone right now who maybe is not at that download threshold, but that maybe they want to get there? And maybe they don't want to get there to join a network, but they want to get there just because they want to be able to have that kind of reach with their podcast, whether network is part of the conversation or not. What should they be looking at? Because I think from your experience, you're someone who could easily reverse engineer this and say, okay, if you want to get there, here's what you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, marketing is extremely challenging. And I'll just say right out of the gate, marketing a podcast and creating a podcast are fundamentally two different skills. If you are looking at a big movie studio, they have a marketing department and a production department. And although it looks like there's some crossover or whatever, there's experts doing totally different things and totally not like thinking about, well, not doing what the other does. There's so many things I could say about marketing. I am by no means an expert, but I am a person who's seen a lot of what works and what doesn't, and just sort of have by osmosis figured some things out. The headline that I would try to give anybody in podcasting, and I almost don't want to give this away because it's too juicy of a tip, and I don't like people stealing all my good tips.
But this is insider secrets to a top 100 podcast.
This is the place. So the one thing I would say is some of your favorite podcasters are not the best examples of how to podcast or how to market your show. And there's so many things that are out there that top podcasters are getting away with that will not work for you as a new podcaster, non-celebrity, finding your way through. What I would take to a very classic marketing approach to it is, what's the value of your podcast? What is it that you're providing? Some people are going to hear that question and go, I really know what it is. My podcast is for young professionals in technology trying to find their first job and going through the interviews, going through their loops. Great, super clear. I know exactly what you're getting. But some of you are probably going I don't know, I just have a fun podcast with my friends. And I go, yes, that is okay. You are providing a value to your listeners. What is that? Is it that you're funny with your friends? Is that you provide hot takes with your friends? Is it that you provide sports predictions with your friends? Those are all very different things, very different podcasts. So, what is the value of your podcast? And then, two, are you communicating that value publicly? Does the title of your podcast communicate that value? Does your cover art, without knowing that most people, when they look at cover art, that'll be the first and last time they ever see anything about the podcast. But do I look at that cover art and immediately understand what they're trying to do for me? And if not, it's worth thinking about. Do the title of my episodes communicate that value? And then finally, and the thing that seems maybe the easiest, but also is the hardest, is do you directly and quickly deliver said value? You know, there's a popular trope in podcasting of like the first 5 minutes is banter. I'm not here for 5 minutes of banter. That's not the value of your podcast. That's not what you promised me. And maybe you can get there and maybe you will get there with time. I think it's okay to think about a format expanding or whatever. But when you're dealing with, there are 7 million, 15 million, 100 billion podcasts, whatever it is, that many YouTube channels, that many streaming services, that many books, there's all kinds of things that people can put their attention to. But if you're taking people's time and they're giving it to you, you should be delivering on that value. One of my favorite podcasts is a comedy podcast that I think is deceptively brilliant in how quickly they get to making jokes on the podcast. And it's funny right away, zero hesitation on it. If you're a funny podcast, you should be funny right away. If you're a tips delivering podcast for whatever industry, you should be delivering that right away. Hook these people, believe that you know what that value is, communicate that value, deliver the value.
Well, let's just end right there because I think that is so true. And I don't know if this is a saying, but maybe we should make it one that, the easiest way to cut through any noise is to simply be clear. And like you said, get to the point, just to get to the point. And Stephen, you have given us so much to think about today, so much knowledge, so much clarity. And I thank you for that. Thank you for being here.
Well, I came here to chew bubblegum and talk about podcasts, and I'm all out of bubblegum. So thanks for having me. Can't wait. Hope for tons of success for you and your listeners, and the micro pitches. If you have a small show and you want to start monetizing through programmatic ads, definitely worth checking out Libsyn Auto Ads. There are other solutions out there that are also perfectly valid and good and worth checking out. But you're on your journey. Keep going, keep building. I love creators. I love people who put in the effort to make something creative act and do it for free and for fun and widely share it. Good for you. Keep it going. And I can't wait to see you at the top making millions of dollars with me.
And if you found this episode helpful and you want more episodes like this, then hit the 5 stars on whatever app you are listening to my voice on right now, and bonus points when you leave a written review to help others know that this show is going to be worth the listen to. And then stay right where you are, because in the next episode, we are getting super tactical and we're breaking down what actually goes into crafting a binge-worthy opening hook to keep listeners listening longer to your episodes. Because believe it or not, most podcasters lose listeners in the first 15 seconds of their episode opening. Not because their topic isn't interesting, but because the first 15 seconds of their show didn't earn their listeners' continued attention. But I promise you this, by the time you finish the next episode, you're going to know exactly how to fix it. That's all coming up next to help you make your business binge-worthy.